Hello and welcome. I'm Sava Kochorapov, and this is The Angel of Memory, Theatres of Remembering and Forgetting, the reimagining of the past and future of the Hohenschönhausen Memorial. In this presentation, I'll guide you through the themes of monumentality and nostalgia, introduce you to the Hohenschönhausen site, and show how my design interrogates memory through architecture. Aldo Rossi draws a key distinction between monuments: pathological, seen as so important they cannot change, and propelling, which propel the city and create civic life. Memorials today often fall into pathological category as they freeze a moment in time, becoming untouchable relics, perfect preservations of what once was. Memorials are a specific type of monument, intentional, commemorative, and loaded with historical or age value. Yet in cities like Berlin, we see a tension. Successive regimes have inscribed their stories in the urban fabric, from imperial to Nazi to GDR to reunified Germany. Berlin both remembers and reinvents itself, and there are many museums and memorials all around it to remind us of it and its past. Here, nostalgia plays a powerful role. In the post-war era, nostalgia emerged, longing not for the GDR, but for a reformed version of it, for the textures of everyday life under socialism, the Plattenbau, the Ampelmann, or even the Palast der Republik. Nostalgia can illuminate the past, but it can also imprison memory, sealing it behind sentiment instead of living dialogue. Located in Old Hohenschönhausen and once erased from the GDR maps as a secret city, this former Stasi remand prison embodies both pathological stillness during its operation and a dark sort of propelling force with expanding operations around it. Built on an industrial canteen site, it became a Soviet camp in 1945, then, from 1951, a Stasi interrogation detention center. Prisoners were driven in unmarked vans, stripped of identity, and subjected to psychological and physical torture. Every detail, the distorted glass block windows, the operators' copper wire alarms, the traffic light corridor systems, was calibrated to the human eyes. Today, it's a memorial. Former prisoners lead eyewitness tours, confronting their trauma through speaking about it. But what happens when those voices fade? My thesis will explore whether there is a future for this memorial when the narrators are absent. Can architecture itself carry those narratives? Or does it need something more? To answer that, I tested different methods. The first one involved site massing and proportion tests through physical models and shifting their masses to explore how the context shapes memory. And then the second approach was through mapping the trauma on site. Drawing on testimonies and archival plans, I pinpointed where memories are embedded, in the cells, doors and windows, interrogation rooms, thresholds, the tiger cages, and so on, and mapped these as two distinct layers that shape the site's traumatic past. From this emerged two architectural languages, one of preservation and remembering, retaining the most charged fabric, the other of erasure and forgetting, stripping away trauma to provoke reflection through absence. Initially, after developing the drawings of erasure and preservation, the next step was to test intuitive proposals that correspond to them. Within the erased fabric, a theatre and library could emerge that contrasts with the site's materiality and proportions to ensure that the site would change. And within the drawing of preservation, a reimagined memorial could be designed, where the entrance is designed in a way that respects the original journey of the prisoners, and the insides features a lot of voids to stimulate remembrance through absence, but in smaller scale, unlike the other language. Then further development and analysis within those languages lead to specifying materiality, moments of preservation, and more. Remembering models preserve doors, windows, slabs, and texture materials. They carve voids around trauma zones, creating spaces for reflection and contemplation. and use concrete to respect the existing materiality of the memorial. And the language of forgetting removes those same elements, replacing them with new timber or glulam structure to deliberately contrast or highlight their missing history. Next, I overlaid both approaches to find shared zones and tensions. Sketches for new entrances, the performance theatre, the library, they emerged in ways that work with the memorial, and each probes how to stitch memory into new public programs. Material experiments with concrete panels from internal demolitions as facade claddings, and reusing leftovers as aggregates in new concrete embeds the memories of the fabric directly onto the new additions. Wallpapers from administrative rooms, more than 60 different patterns, became raw textures in my models, symbolizing the perpetrator's manipulation and reminding us that even familiar surfaces can hide dark secrets. The Theatres of Remembering and Forgetting. The final proposal frames three distinct zones: the memorial, library, and the Theatres of Remembering and Forgetting. Within the memorial, selective subtraction to remember leaves voids for reflection. Exposed concrete beams and residual thresholds guide visitors through layered memory. The new journeys through the space and the vertical fading of the paths symbolizes how we can let go of trauma and use it to shape ourselves and our future. The library serves as a transitional space. It is situated between fabric of importance and not. Thus, it mixes the languages of preservation and erasure and has a concrete and timber frame within. Timber joinery repurposes old doors frames into bookshelves and stands for artifacts. Floor tracings mark former walls, turning absence into narrative and hinting remembering. The Theatre of Forgetting is intentionally alienated from the site, as it relies on reversing one of the torture principles used in interrogation. The Stasi is used to place victims in rooms, wallpaper to match their home, to give them false sense of comfort and increase the likelihood of confession. But here the theatre does the opposite. It seems detached from the site, but after you enter and look around, it reveals architectural references to the Palais der Republik and State Council building in Berlin, institutions of GDR control and power. These theatres are more than symbolic. They're civic spaces that animate memory, staging Berlin's dual nature of remembering and forgetting, and asking visitors to perform their own acts of engagement. In closing, this project reimagines memorialization not as a static reverence, but as a dynamic performance, an angel of memory reborn. By weaving preservation and erasure, it strives to transform monumentality in architecture and let the trauma shape the future long after eyewitnesses' voices have quieted. Thank you for listening.